My name is Rukia Campbell, and I'd like to welcome you to the Center of Excellence, Behavioral Health and Nursing Facilities Lived Experience. This is a compelling series that delves into the profound and diverse stories of individuals navigating the intricate landscapes of behavioral health and substance use. In each episode, we invite you to explore firsthand testimonials from people across different walks of life, sharing their triumphs, challenges, and the transformative power of their lived experiences. Our goal is to inspire, educate, inform, and motivate as we embark on this collective journey towards understanding, resilience, and hope. So join us as we unravel a tapestry of human strength and resilience in the face of adversity. Today, we welcome our special guest, David McKay. David is an Atlanta-based substance use counselor, and he's worked as a substance use mental health counselor for over 10 years. He's also worked in acute care at Georgia Regional Hospital and Grady Hospital, and he has lived experience in the area of substance use recovery. So David, thank you so much for joining us today and being willing to share your story. In relation to your journey, please share a few pivotal moments that led you to your chosen profession.
Well, it would be wonderful to say that it was some profound, life-altering experience that made this happen. But the motivation actually came from a very subtle experience. It came from seeing people in this profession and the type of job satisfaction that they clearly were experiencing. Everyone that I encountered that was working in substance or mental health or just general health, they all seemed to enjoy being of service, and the human services was something that was clearly near and dear to them. Nobody gets into this field based on cash and prizes. So there's got to be something in the heart that gets tugged. My particular experience had to do with a family member. My spouse at the time, she had a mysterious illness episode. It required her to go to the hospital. And I just remember 5 o'clock in the morning, everybody that was taking care of her and that seemed to be working at 5 o'clock in the morning, I don't think you would have seen me too happy at that time, but the expression and the joy in their faces and the genuine concern that they had for not just her, but everybody who was around was really inspirational for me. Now, of course, that was a big supplement to the fact that I had my own experience in the area of both mental health and substance abuse. And I had an awful lot of people that were giving themselves to help me out when I never saw that that was necessary.
Wow.
I had people caring about me a whole lot more than I was capable of caring for myself. And I never forgot that. So when I saw that there was an avenue into giving back in the same way that was given to me, I wanted in. I wanted to be a part of it.
That's awesome. So your own experience led you to wanting to be able to help others.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
Were there any challenges that you experienced that led to you identifying the need to recover?
Absolutely. The biggest identifier was my constant telling myself that I was just a person who experienced a lot of bad luck. I was just an unlucky person. That was how I saw myself. The world was kind of out to get me. And I never connected dots and put together that, wow, maybe some of my behaviors were contributing to my bad luck. I was able eventually to have those pieces come together, which kind of led me into my own personal journey, the recovery. A lot of people say they have their white light moments, whether in the hospital bed or sitting in jail or something like that. That was not my experience. It was 100% inside. I felt hollowed out, and I just wasn't willing to experience any more bad luck in my life. So I was motivated to try something different, and for me, that something different was recovery and a life that didn't include drugs and alcohol.
So once you decided to take that personal journey, on recovery. What type of resources or tools did you find were beneficial?
Well, in my case, I was never fortunate enough to get into like a treatment facility or something like that. I'm still envious of people that manage to get into those situations. I think they're absolutely wonderful and give people quite a head start in the journey. But I was introduced to recovery through the 12-step programs, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and there I found people that were speaking my language. You know, it was kind of terrifying that I thought all of my thoughts, my experiences were unique to me. And I would sit in a room full of people and everybody had the same shared experience. And that was really, really inspirational. And what I heard when I walked in and I started to participate was laughter and connections and people that were enjoying life and talking about their life before the joy. And that motivated me to continue.
That's awesome. Having that community and really recognizing you're not the only one experiencing this, and you're not, and really with that community that you found, you realize that you don't have to go through recovery by yourself. So that's
Never
amazing.
have to be alone. Never
Yeah.
have.
So knowing that, thank you for sharing, your process and how, the method that you chose as far as your path to recovery and some of the group work. But, I think it's worth mentioning, one size does not fit all. So,
Correct.
what are
Mhm.
some other options or what are some other things that you've seen that have helped people?
That's a great question because you absolutely nailed it. There is no one size fits all, and everybody's journey through recovery is completely unique. There are a lot of people who find their herd and their crowd um, through church-based and faith-based programs. They find it through therapy. They find it through group therapy. Um, there are also other methods, right? Harm reduction is something that is proven effective for a lot of individuals who may or may not be addicts or alcoholics, but may be going through a period of time where they just can't get off of the hamster wheel. And harm reduction seems to be very effective in addressing that for a lot of people. There are a lot of tools out there. I think one of the great tools right now is there are a lot of community-based substance abuse and mental health facilities that are available where people can come in, participate in groups, establish a network of support without needing to be in a public Alcoholics Anonymous meeting or sit in an inpatient facility for weeks or months at a time.
Well, so you mentioned earlier that just seeing a caregiver give care was pivotal to you and provided you a lot of inspiration to enter this field. The welcoming smiles, the helpful nature, which you were probably mirroring that same behavior as well now that you're in the profession. Knowing that this opportunity for us to share folks' lived experiences is tailored to administrative folks that actually work in long-term care facilities that support people with substance use challenges. Was there a specific professional or individual that helped you in your recovery journey? And if so, how did they provide kind of standout support?
Absolutely. And there are actually far too many to count and go through here.
Mhm.
But one person that definitely comes to mind is an older gentleman who in 12-step work we call a sponsor. And this gentleman was my sponsor. And he gave me two things that I had never received from anybody before. Number one, never any judgment for anything I ever said, any thoughts I shared or anything. And number two, he actually listened. He wasn't waiting to talk. He was there to listen to what I had to say and process. And I had never experienced that before. Now, I was very, very experienced with people barking orders at me saying, this is what you should do, and if you just did this, things would be different. But I didn't experience that. you know. Um, the beautiful thing, and in this profession I'm learning, is if you let someone speak long enough, they're going to answer their own questions.
Mhm.
And that was very, very critical for me. That was the first time I'd ever experienced that.
Mhm. So stigmas are something that we hear is often prevalent when someone is supporting someone with a substance use disorder. What are some stigmas that perhaps you were up against in your recovery journey, that you even currently have to address in your role as a substance use counselor?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. Um, well, from my personal experience, I was initially diagnosed in my teens as having an anxiety disorder, and it was recommended that I go on a medication. Um, from just, family advice and experiences around me, well, that was suggesting somehow or another that, well, they're saying you're crazy, David, and they want to put you on a medication, which is only going to make things worse. So that was what I associated with a diagnosis early on. I didn't have the ability to look and say, no, it just means I have an anxiety disorder and that there's something that can be done about it. Also, I learned early on what was given to me. The information that was provided was that uh, addiction, alcoholism, those are moral issues. Those are moral failings, and I held on to that because I didn't want to acknowledge that was a possibility. I had to learn later on that neither of those things are true. Having a diagnosis did not make me crazy, and having addiction issues did not mean that I had a moral failing. Um, what we do in this field is, for the most part, and I think that research has come a long way in this. I'm 60 years old now, so we're talking about 40 plus years of information. Um, the most significant thing is the disease model of addiction. That it's not a moral failing, and it is in fact a brain disease, and that it's chemistry, just like a lot of other mental health diagnoses, and can be modified, right,
Mhm.
through action and in some cases medication.
Mhm.
But in no way, shape, or form has it ever been a moral failing, and it's good to know that now.
Absolutely. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, through your years of experience and through your own, education, that education clearly is key and important, specifically from you mentioning that you learned that it's a brain disease, that it's not a moral failure. And that type of knowledge only comes through education. So knowing that that is key and important, I can imagine that even in a support role, um, just the ability to learn all of this can be stressful and taxing. So, what keeps you during this work, doing this work?
Well, a lot of it is, the truth is, all of this information is very fresh because it's not just learning, it's relearning.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was educated early on.
Mm-hmm.
I have a family history of addiction, and my mother was my first instructor in the area of substance use and mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was told very clearly that, well, alcoholics, they drink from brown bags. And my mother's solution to this was to always have a tumbler in her bag so that if she had occasion to have a drink in the park, she could drink like a lady, therefore non-alcoholic. Now, drug addicts, they get high all during the day. So her solution to that was to only use drugs at night, therefore non-addict. So I had to unlearn all of this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And above and beyond, like you said, if you're drinking from a brown bag or if you're getting high during the day, that indeed is a moral failing, and we need to avoid that at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one thing I do want to say is anybody, anybody who makes any kind of effort to get into recovery, I completely applaud them, because it's not a weakness. It's the ultimate show of strength. You know, there is nothing more difficult for an adult to reach out to somebody and say, hi, I think I need help. You know, the level of bravery there in doing that is unbelievable, you know. And once again, I'm telling you, from my generation coming up, that just wasn't done. That wasn't done. You know, you handle your business, you don't ask for help, you know, which probably drove my behavior for as long as it did, because I always had that in the back of my mind. I got to do this on my own.
So even now, I'm sure as a substance use counselor, you probably encounter people that, you know, still have that same kind of perspective, that they don't recognize that there's an issue, that they don't recognize or want to raise their hand to say, I need help. So as a counselor, how do you go from identifying that this person has a need or desire to move forward to treatment?
That's another great point. Wonderfully, right now we don't have to go through the same guesswork that we used to. We've got incredible tools, diagnostic tools, where an individual can fill out a questionnaire and really draw their own conclusion by the end of it, you know. So an individual never has to feel like someone's pointing a finger at them or making a demand of them that they're not willing to comply with. Oftentimes, someone will sit in a chair across from me and do everything they can to rationalize the behavior, defend their behavior, let me know, no, I don't really know why I'm here. There is no issue. And by the time the session's over and we've gone through a few diagnostics, they say, yep, okay, maybe there might be a problem, and maybe this is a little bit more of a cry for help than I initially thought.
So the tool that you mentioned, as far as you know, you helping them fill that out and kind of pointing out, you know, these are some of the same behaviors on that diagnostic tool, that seems to be helpful.
Absolutely. We have a behavioral tool. It's called the Addiction Severity Index. So very, very long. It takes about an hour to process it. But by the time that is completed, it certainly gives an individual an opportunity to take a look at behaviors and patterns of behavior and say, wow, okay, this isn't necessarily something that needs a Band-Aid. Perhaps this needs some serious healing.
So in addition to tools, what type of advice would you give a behavioral health specialist on how to support or encourage someone to walk the recovery path?
Absolutely. Number one, listen. Number two, listen. Number three, listen, right? Non-judgmental, just listen to the story, give everybody an opportunity to draw their own conclusions. And then usually I will find, when I find it therapeutically beneficial, I will share a bit of myself and my experience. I do want to point out that that is not necessarily the case with every person that I meet. I don't meet a new person and immediately say, hi, I'm David McKay. I've been sober for 20 years. And boy, let me tell you about how it was for me. That's not always beneficial, you know. But when it becomes apparent that they need just that little nudge or that little piece of evidence for a little buy-in to recovery, then I'm willing to share some of myself with them.
So in those instances where you have felt comfortable to share about your journey, after you've done that, were there any misconceptions that that person that you shared that information with, that they may have about you, or that you figured out, okay, they've got some things mixed up just because I shared that I went through this journey? Is there anything that you can shed some light on in that respect?
Yeah, that's great. And the reason I'm smiling so hard is because that's probably the most common response that I get. Well, wait a minute, you're doing this and you've been sober for X number of years. Why are you still doing this? Right? And I try to explain very, very delicately, the only reason that I'm able to do this is because I'm still doing recovery for myself. Um, I have a wonderful family story. I am blessed my aunt to have a 98-year-old aunt who is sharp as a tack and still remembers all of the shenanigans of her young David. Um, and she asks me almost every time I talk to her, which is regularly, if I'm still going to those classes. Are you still going to those classes? You know, you've got to be about wrapped up by now, aren't you? And I just let her know, no, you know, I haven't graduated yet, but I'm working on it. Appreciate it. And that's kind of the attitude that I take. You know, I like to consider myself a perpetual beginner when it comes to recovery. It keeps things green, it keeps things fresh, and it keeps me motivated to grow. You know, because a good friend of mine likes to say, well, you know, the day you stop growing, that's when you're being viewed. So I kind of take that to heart. I want to be grown in this direction.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today about your journey, about your love for your profession, and thank you for all the work that you do in this space. And thank you all for joining us for the Center of Excellence for Behavioral Health and Nursing Facilities Lived Experience.